Okay, so we've got this one done now. It's not a bad fit at all. Just a very flashy, as we were saying about there is quite a amount of flashing actually on the entire kit. Certainly a lot of the sprues tend to be a lot more flashy than others. So all we're doing is lining these up. Now if you get them lined up pretty well, they actually won't need much work. So if we just get some extra thin on the go on one side, okay. Make sure it's a nice fit. There we go. Both sides. Then what I like to do is just run a little bit just down the inside and let it run the length of the join, if you like, down the middle. Then when this totally dries, if you've got the time to leave this to stand for sort of 12 hours, then if you get a file, just one of these types of files, you can go down the middle and just take out any little seam there is. But as I say, they're pretty sunk back. They're going to be this far back as it is to do. Now the thing is, you've got two little holes just down in here. They need to be opened up, and there's an ejector pin mark in the bottom here. Now it's quite nice to get rid of that one because it always tends to be quite rough down there. So all we do, open up our holes. There's one and there are two, and this is obviously where the fuel tanks come off the bottom. So if you're not doing it with the fuel tanks, so there we go, that's those holes opened up, and then obviously what will happen is these will come along and sit down in there like that for when they join up to the main fuselage. But as I say, we're going to let those dry off first, so we've got quite a little bit of drying to do. So what we're going to do is clean up these few parts, take care of this ejector pin mark in the bottom, and then we can get it all fitted up underneath. Okay, what we've done, we've put a little bit of filler just on the top here, because obviously it's quite a noticeable area, and then right the way around, because there is a little step all the way around there, so I just wanted to make sure it's going to be a nice clean join between the two. So it's going to take a little bit of rescribing to do all that, but I'd rather have that than obviously have a bit of a dodgy join on the front there. Now this back part now is now basically totally dry, so we can get on with getting this rear end all into position and then building up the front part there. Now what I'm actually doing at this precise moment, I left the link in between just to brace these two front bits because they have a habit of snapping and snagging on things and all the rest of it. But what I was actually doing, I've cut this one off on this side. Obviously where we've joined the two up, as you can see in here like that, you get a little step, and as we were saying, you have that little seam line running through. So all I've done, I've got my file, and we've come in like this. I'll do this a bit backwards, okay, and we're just sanding, bring it in so you can see a bit better, sanding in. You see the white building up there, and that's just that little step on the front. And obviously if you pull it back, you can clean up then that entire, I'll perhaps hold it up here a bit better, you see it, but as you can see, it gets rid of the seam line running through the middle and takes care of any little gaps and things that may be occurring anywhere. So all we do is give that on the sides as well, so it makes a nice join. Now obviously you could use filler in there as well if you wanted to, or anything else. But as I say, you just get in there, work your file and smooth that out as best as you can. You could actually take it down to being a perfect smooth join as we're basically getting there now, or you could just go in there with your filler and take care of it. Whichever way, make it a nice clean join, and then what we can do, we can spray them up white. So we're going to do the same for the other side here. Okay, so the bit we can do now is this back bit, as we were saying. Now obviously if you have it like this and you push them up as you would think it would go, when you put your end nozzle ring on the back here for the engine, it's a massive step and it's out of alignment. So if you just let it relax and then you place it on there, you'll find that it's a very good fit. So when we don't want to be gluing this back bit up here and locking it in. So what we do, make sure you're flash free around the edges on the side there, because it's quite, has a little bit of flash, and we're going to do the same to make a nice join. We're just going to push this in, got a nice line there on the first try, so we're just going to come along with that extra thin, I'm just going to touch and let it flow into those, into that line, to just weld that up. We're going to use plenty of it because I want it to do it quite well, and we're just going to do that edge for the moment, the top edge, nowhere else, and then we're going to let that dry just for a few minutes, and then once it's dry, we can then actually pinch this back area together. And obviously it's not a nice fit, it's quite a rough fit back there, so it's going to need a bit of sanding and tidying up to do it. But there we go, we can get that in, and it's a nice join. And that's the important bit, because these are the two areas where it tends to stand out. Obviously when we get these intakes on here in a moment, they're going to fit up here. We want the seam lines to be good, so it's going to be plenty of test fitting. Okay, so what we've got going on at the moment, we've done the air intakes, we've sanded and done them, sprayed them white, and all I've done is brush painted some Johnson's Clear, or Future, wherever you're on in the world, in there, just to gloss it up a bit, because I sprayed it just flat white, neat, just to do it, so I knew it would stick in there, and away we go. It might need another coat, because I want it to look quite glossy, you know. Actually, when you look down inside the intakes, they have that sort of plasticky look, and that's what I'm trying to do with that. We've painted up the actual the fan blades as well, and obviously these will, when this is dry, will stick in the back here, and away we go. Those I've just literally painted them with Citadels, and I've done them with the gunbolt metal, so that's that one. Got this drying back here. I've glued the two parts together. Obviously we haven't done, as we were saying, this back part here that springs together the engines, because when you marry it up with a cone, as you say, as it just sits there in the relaxed position, it fits. When that's totally dry, what we'll do is we'll marry this up to make sure it is in the right position, and then once it is and we know it's there, we'll glue it and hold it in position, so when the actual engines do all go in and everything, it'll all fit very nicely. So that's just that for the moment. So we've got those bits going on. As soon as that's sort of dry at the back here, we then can go around and start to fill and sand as we go round. Okay, so we're going to get these fitted in. Now there's two ways of doing it. Here's one I've done for the other side already. And literally it will come along. It's still a little bit wet, but it will literally just drop in and fit in like that, and away you go. So it's quite straightforward. Or you can build it like that. You can do it as in a separate part. So all we'll do, we'll just put some extra thin, just pull it down in there like that. Okay, then you can actually fit it down in there, so it sits in there just like that, and then obviously just run a bit of glue to sort of hold that and keep all that in position, like so. And then you have your little the activators for it. If I bring it in a little bit closer, we have the one, so the one that is you put to the rear, because we're going to be doing it in the somewhat closed down position. So we'll put it in like that, and obviously you want it leaning forward so it holds it up. Okay, so that's that one in, like there, and then on the other side it's slightly off centre, so slightly to the inside. We'll do the other one, which is facing the other side, like so. Then the easiest way is obviously the one with the curve. On these parts here, you get one side actually has a curve and one side that doesn't. So obviously you want to do the one where the actual curved part is. So all we do, we'll put a drop of glue towards the top to put a little ball on it. Okay, and obviously I'll have to just get down here. We want it to sit on the top in there. Okay, I want the blades to be square, so it sits like that. Then all we do is come along with some glue, let that run along the front there. Obviously you're going to have to square it up a little bit, because you want it to be so it fits to the front but still allows it to come through, if you know what I mean. So say this area here, you need it to butt up so it's flushed with it, but try and keep it all symmetrical, because obviously when this part comes on the top down, it's still got to fit in there. So that's really that. Okay, then we'll just do the same for the back, but as I say, if you put a blob of glue in that hole there and then drop it on there first. Okay, so the next thing we can actually do now is actually spray up. We need to spray this white area. Now obviously we've done the insides of these, so when you put down you can roughly work out where it's going to be, and it's actually this rear part of this one here. So really the line is going to be back. So all we need to do now is spray white in this back area, and then when this goes over the top, it'll make a line. So all we'll do now, we're just going to flick on the old compressor, and we're just going to spray this back one white. Down the sides as best as we can, just like that, and then obviously make sure you come in from the inside, and we'll just try and get underneath as best as we can. Not that anyone's really going to see this, but you'll know it's been done. And so these rear ones, really you can't see them at all. So there we go, that's done now. Just pop that up there. That's still with Tamiya XF2 for the flat white, and it's virtually neat. It's literally just got a drop of thinners in there just to help it through. But doing it neat, it sticks, does it in one coat, otherwise you spend hours, keep going backwards and forth. Right, okay, as I say, we've got the citadels on here, so these now can fit to the rears of these, so these will just sit in over the top like that. So obviously, I don't know how well you can see this because of the light, but there we go, the fan blades in there like that. Then all we'll do, I'm just going to put a drop of the extra thin just around the outside, and the capillary action will whip around the inside there. So we snap that off. Same on the other side. That one in. Okay, there. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see much of these in there, purely because of the actual the way that with the fan sits and everything else. So that's on there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is just mask up obviously the inside, so we get a nice crisp line when you're looking down the air intake. Now the best way to do this, if we just make a mark where we want it to go, so it's going to be there and there straight across. Okay, we've got some 10mm Tamiya tape here. So all we're going to do now is literally put one part there. Okay, if we slowly sort of push down, want it to go down nice and square, and obviously if you use a cocktail stick to push down, so it feels nice and square, they're running down the bottom and up, and there we go, you get that sort of line like that. Now that's not 100% square, so what I'll do in a moment, I'll redo it, but that gives you the rough idea. Then obviously we'll bung up this entire hole with a little bit of foam pads that we've got here. We're going to stick these in like this to bung it up totally, so when it actually sits down nothing can get through, and then afterwards what we can do is literally just shove a pin down there and pull it all out. Okay, so there we go. Well, you can actually see that. Let me just bring this, clear a bit of space and bring it round, but we've got a bit of sponge in there. There we go, there you are. A bit of sponge in there which will take care of any overspray getting up and amongst there. And then we've just folded the tape over the top. Now I don't know exactly how well you're going to be able to see this. If we just make a mini ramp, so to speak, so you're looking down a bit better. Okay, so obviously this is white and is dry now. So this one will sit straight down over the top. And I don't know. Obviously it takes a little bit of wiggling. I don't know how well you can see there, but if you can see, the tape is physically going to cover on the foam that rear compressor, the plate there that's coming up, so that will give you that part done. So if we very carefully sit this down, it takes a bit of wiggling because you sort of have to pull back and push up, and it will click. There we go, just like that. So if you can see back down in the intake there, you can see the foam and the tape is going to cover, and then all we'll do is pop in there with our cocktail stick and we can push down that bit of tape just to take care of it totally, and then we could obviously add another little bit of tape just up in there to make it better. But as you can see, it's a quick, simple way we turn it over, there you go, you see, of doing it. And obviously we would say we can get in it with a cocktail stick or a pin, and we can literally drag it all out once it's all done and dried. Okay, this is quite a tricky bit to try and line this up. Now I was going to use actually tabs, if you can see on here, locator tabs to help it in here, but the trouble is you don't get the clearance then from this part here. It needs to drop straight down into it and fit. So what we're going to do is very, very carefully fit the rear part to make a nice seam on here, and then hopefully when that's a nice seam and looking nice and everything's okay, then we can actually then start working our way up to the front part and gluing it down as we go and as we move up. So when we've got it all nicely set at the back here, so what we're going to do, just to keep things roughly in place, we're just going to pop a rubber band around the front part to hold it down, so because we need to know roughly what type of shape we are. And really this is going to be one of those ones that's just going to take a little bit of patience just to get it to be the right sort of fit and shape. And then that way, if we play with it a little bit here, so to speak, hopefully we won't have to come back with gallons of filler, because the thing is there's a lot of detail around this area, and it's not the type of detail you want to be going around having to rescribe either, because it's square little bits and pieces. And that I'm pretty happy with. So as we stop right there, we're just going to liquid glue. I'm going to run it, plenty of it, over this area. Now there's just one little bit that I'm not totally happy with just down here, but what I'll do is I'll slightly let it set, and then we can push it in and hold it whilst the rest of it sets. So I'm not going to fiddle with it at the moment because there's a nice crisp line across the top, so we're going to let that stand for the next 5 minutes. Okay, there we go, we've got that glued in, they're in and down. Now I've got little blobs of blue tack here just to push the sides in, and that's what it needs, but really there's no magic cure for doing this. Literally all I do the outsides and the back here to try and get the best fit, and every now and again I still pop back and make sure we're all getting in there happy and it's nicely lining up and things, and making sure they're all okay. Now you might get a little step, but really very hard to lose that one. The other thing also is I only glue the insides for the moment. I don't glue these front strays down the front here or anything on the outsides for the moment, because I want all those to dry, because sometimes it needs pulling and pushing to get all in there. So this is one of those things now, we're going to have to leave this for a little bit just to totally dry off. In the meantime, over here drying on the windowsill, we have the front, and say bit of filler all around there, just to try and taper it in there. It is going to need, obviously, unfortunately, a bit of rescribing around the front end here, but we've got quite a coarse sanding stick and a coarse file. Now with it, all we do, we keep on the level. We don't go sort of this way, we go keep it flat and cover that entire joint, and we're just going all the way around just like this to knock off 99% of all the filler. Now the reason we don't go back and forth, because if you're going to go back and forth and there is a step, all you're going to do is make that step even worse. But as long as your pad is right over the top, then you should be okay. So all we've done, we've gone all the way around like that, get across the belly there. Then all we're going to do is come back to quite a coarse sanding sponge, as we say. And there we go, we're cleaning that up. If I show you, we can move that out of the way, a bit delicate. Okay, let's bring you in a little bit. As you see, you have it like this, and then just make sure, same thing again, your sanding sponge covers both sides. You don't want it to be, you know, scraping up and down over the top of it. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're just going to make the step actually worse. So make sure you've got it all covered, and we're just going to go back and forth, and we're going to work our way right the way over, just like that. And then all we're going to do is, once we've gone round with the heavy stuff, we're literally just going to come back with the next course down of sanding sponge and so forth and so on, until we've got it all done nicely. So as you can see there, you can see the marks where the file has left little bits in there. That's why you've got the steps. So we just need to keep going round, keep going up, all the way around as we go, Okay, that'll do for that course, and then we'll come back with lighter, and then we're going to have to rescribe a few little panel lines. Okay, so these outer ones are dry now, and to be honest, they're still not a perfect join under here, if I'm totally honest. What we're going to try and do, we're going to try and disguise it, and what I mean by that is we're going to run a panel line right the way over it, and hopefully when the wash is on, what happens is, if it's not, obviously if it really is a step, you can't do it, but what happens is the eye is drawn away from it because it just looks like a panel line and you can't see a step. There isn't a step as such, you know, when you feel it, it feels quite smooth, but there is a slight edge. But say hopefully once that glue is totally dry, it won't be a problem because we'll pop a panel line in, away we go. The other major thing we can do now is we can put on the fronts of the actual air intakes. Now these have never been the best fit in the world. They tend to be a bit of a nightmare to get actually on. Sometimes you do it and they line up quite nicely, other times they don't. Your best thing to do with these particular parts is to literally sand them in, is to sand and fill those in. This side isn't particularly too bad. So what we're going to do, we're going to pop a bit of extra thin just around on these edges, just for a moment, and then we're going to slide this in. Okay, and we're going to look at this edge here. Will be our actual our reference point to make sure it's all okay. And then what we'll do is we're just going to make sure it's in, and that's not too bad a join at all. But as you can see at the top here, if I move you in, we've got quite a nasty gap. So obviously we're just trying to push that in a little bit. But as I say, it's going to need filling, sanding and filling. So we're going to put a generous quantity of liquid cement in there, let the capillary action work its business absolutely everywhere, all in there, and then hopefully we can come back, and if we just give it a bit of a wiggle and a push around, because it's softening the plastic around it, it might be enough that we can just get in there with a little bit of filler and a little bit of sanding work, and it won't cost us too much at all. But that's that one, and we're going to get the other side in, and then we can start to go around and trying to fit the air intakes down here in there. Okay, so the next tricky point is we were saying, now this is all totally dry, and I would advise it to be totally dry before you do it, because there's a lot of pulling around and you might end up, you know, pulling out your other joints you were doing back here. So what we're going to do, as you see, I've got a rubber band around it because I'm trying to pull up these air intakes up to here, and now that it only needs a little bit of a pinch to get them in, but I don't know how well you can see that. You probably will want to bring you in here. As you can see, we've got quite a nasty gap running along. Now without this rubber band, which is doubled over, and as you can hear, it's very tight, it's even worse. So it pulls up in there. Then your best way to do this is to literally get your extra thin, get your extra thin in there like that, and then basically we're going to let it flow forward, and as it flows forward we're going to hold it. So what we do, we use a generous quantity of extra thin, put it there, and then hopefully it will be pulled together. The capillary action will pull it all the way along, which it has done. So now we've just got a bit of patience, and we just need to hold it there for a few moments to let that start to get tacky. As soon as it starts to bite and can hold on there, then we can actually let go. Okay, so as you can see, we've actually got some filler on the go here. We're just plastering it down this side, up around here. Not too happy with the way it joined up under here, so we've given it a bit of filler in there. Literally, I've just got an old blade here. We're using Squadron's Green. I quite like it. It dries pretty firm and doesn't get much shrinkage. I have tried other sort of putties. The Valero model one's very good at small areas. Anything big, then it's a bit of a no-no, because I don't think it dries particularly completely rock hard. It dries slightly soft. So what we're going to do, we've already sanded off this side, and it went a little bit too much of the sanding really to get in there. So what we're going to do, we're just going to pop some filler on here, and we're just going to push up from the upside, because that's where it is, and then scrape back. And we're just going to run the filler all the way down this front edge, and that way it will be a lot easier to sand and fill than it is to go the other way. So obviously we've just got a little tiny gap that really didn't do too well down here as well. And all we'd do is literally, I put down and just make a roll of it on the end of your knife. Okay, and then you can just pop it in like that. So that'll take care of those. And then just go around and have a look at any gaps. Make sure you haven't got any on the insides. If you did it my sort of way of doing the inside first, you won't have any anyway. Also, I had another little gap just in here, so I've taken care of that one. And I've got another tiny one on the inside here. So we're just going to do the same. There we go. And it's quite straightforward, and it'll be easy to sand out. And being squadron, it's quite a sunny day today. I can get this out, pop it on the windowsill, and it'll dry within about half an hour. Then we can come back and sand it. These main ones are all okay, so we're happy with that. But at the same time, we've done a few other little bits. We put the engine halves together so they can be drying as well. We put the tail fins together, same thing, just whip around there, only a simple push fit. Okay, well, one of the things, beauty about the kit, because it's all sub-assemblies and parts like that, there's never a sort of downtime, because there's always things you can be getting on with. So as we've got all that filler drying, what we can actually do now is start on the wings. Now, with the Tomcat wings, you can actually have them with the flaps and the slats at the front deployed, or actually retracted or folded back, whichever way you want to do it. So obviously in this case, and for basically storage and things like that, I'm going to have the wings swept back and in the power down. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to put together the upper and the lower wings. Now the thing with this is, sometimes you get little bits of flashing down in areas down in here, and some of these little holes need cleaning out as well. It was a little bit flashy. The entire kit, to be honest, is a little bit flashy, and when we say that, it's obviously those little plastic bits go all over it. And here we are, we've got another bit up here, so we're just gonna, with quite a coarse side, just give it a quick rub round everywhere to make sure you haven't got any, because 9 times out of 10, if you get a bit of a gap appear somewhere, it's usually a little bit of flashing or ejector pin marks sticking up, something like that, especially on modern kits. But there we go. So we're going to put this together, and then we're going to hold this wing root like this. Okay, and we're just going to, from the outside, run some glue, and then a quick little tip here. If you put the extra thin in each one of these little tabs out the front, it will spread its way across to the other points, to the other one, and join up, if you know what I mean. So we get along like that. So we go all the way along, and we're just going to put some down here as well, nice and firm. And then just looking down the front, we can push it all together. And then we're going to do a little bit just in the navigation light where the hole is, and just on the end like that. And we're just going to squeeze together to hold, and then from the inside the wingtip there. Now, one thing to remember, if you're using extra thin like this, don't go overboard on thin styrene, especially like here on this wingtip, because the thing is, if you put too much there, it'll melt. So all we've got to do now is just on the inside bits. So we're just going to run little bits around here and there, just everywhere, just down it inside the back here to go. There we go. And we were going to let that dry. Now, depending on, I've already snipped off these little tabs off the back here that hang down, and then what happens is you have the other wing comes along and hangs back, and they go in these little slots, as you can see here, and then obviously it's the other way up though, and it goes in like that to be deployed. Now, in true Blue Peter style, here's some I did earlier. On the other side, basically I've done it and it's glued and it's dry. We've cut off the tabs, so then basically all that happens is this one goes in the back. Now, I've already glued on the back here. Obviously you've got the 2 parts for sandwiching in. Because we're not going to have it deployed, we can do it up front. So we've just put that in, and that will glue quite nicely in like that. So if you just give it a dab of the glue in the actual little activator areas where they will be. Okay, and a bit of a nudge. Now, I'm deliberately not going to glue the top. Now, the reason I'm not going to glue the top is that it's what we're saying about it's very thin styrene, and it might melt and then pull down, and then it will look not very nice at all. So we do that. Okay, so to make sure it's all going to be okay, we're going to leave it on the flat surface like that, just to go flat. Now, if you were going to be doing the actual with the slats here, the forward ones activated, obviously you'd paint this inner area here red, and you just use those tabs, and then obviously it glues on into the little little dips along there, just like that. Very straightforward, very simple. Obviously we're going to be doing it retracted in, so what we need to do is snip these off. The instructions would say cut them off before you've got the wing together. I say do it when it's on there, because you can literally sand them in. So you just go along and we're going to snip off them all just like that. There we go. And then what we're going to do, you're just going to have to sand down. If you run your finger along, you can hear it. So what you need to do is just literally sand off the bottoms of each one, because it dips down, if you like. So you just need to sand that little bit off, just like that. And then with the rough side, because nobody's going to see it, you can just blend in fronts like so, and then you can glue this into place just like that, and that's it. So by the time you've got your back half in there as well as we was doing with the other one, that's your wing complete.